Hello my friends! If you're new here, my name is Rachel and welcome to the channel, and if you are returning, hi, welcome back. It's so nice to see you again. Winter is officially here. The weather is now chilly, Thanksgiving has come and gone, and to top it all off, when I went outside this morning, I could actually see my breath from how cold it was. Now, the reason I mention all of this is because this video is the final speed build of Pottsfield. I got struck with so much final autumn inspiration that I just had to push through and get it all done. We will finish our last major areas on the island today, so do strap in and buckle up because this video is quite a doozy. I am so excited for you guys to see these final areas come together, so do stick around for the beauty shots at the end of the video. If this is your first time watching, do subscribe to the channel because I would love to have you around, and be sure to like the video as well. Now, without further ado, let's jump into our final speed build. So we are starting off Pottsfield's final speed build, which is so crazy to say out loud. I just feel so bittersweet about it. But we are finishing the final speed build video off with a beachside carnival and a boardwalk, which I am so excited for you guys to see the end product of. This was a build that definitely tested my limits and brought me out of my comfort zone, which has been the most fun thing about working on Pottsfield, I would have to say. This entire island really tested me, but in the best way. Even though there were some areas that I struggled with, never once did I feel like I didn't know what to do or that I lacked inspiration. I've just had inspiration for so many areas on the island, and it's been so refreshing because I've spent so much time being burnt out on this game. I know that that's something that I've read a lot in the comments as well, that you guys have talked about your own Animal Crossing burnout, and it's debilitating. I will admit, like, it's really sad because I feel like so many of us played the game, you know, we binged it all during 2020 during the pandemic, and to get burnt out on something that brought us so much joy, at least for me personally, was really hard to come to terms with. So being able to work on Pottsfield and feel like I cured my burnout and feel inspired, and to finally have a second island finished in the game is just, it's honestly so crazy. And to have it documented from start to finish, because episode 1, when we worked on the entrance speed build, that was my first time building an Animal Crossing in over a year and a half or 2 years, and to just pull this island out of the bag off the get-go after not designing in the game for so long, like, I don't want to toot my own horn. I'm not the type of person who necessarily will like talk highly about myself, but like, I'm really proud of myself for this island. Like, I just want to take a second to appreciate how, you know, areas like this ended up turning out, and how without starting this YouTube channel, I never would have thought it would be possible to build things like this. And all of the love and support that you guys have shown me from video 1 all the way until now just really helps me feel like I don't have imposter syndrome when it comes to building. I feel like a lot of times when it comes to, you know, people who are creative, we all tend to think that we're not good enough, and that we are kind of like posing as, you know, a creative person, whether that's a writer or an artist or a musician or a content creator or any of these types of people. Like, you never really feel like you're there. And I feel like being able to share this like design journey with you guys kind of like helps to combat that imposter syndrome a little bit. But yeah, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much for being here from the start of this journey up until now. And even if you're a new viewer, or you're watching this months later or even years later since we finished Pottsfield, just know that I appreciate you so much, and I hope that you guys enjoy everything that I do in this video. But I have gone through and completely talked over the fact that we have just laid down all of the boardwalk pathing in this area, but I pretty much just went through and tried to fill in every single open tile with this plank code that I have. And this is the same plank code set that we used in our over the garden wall pumpkin patch speed build video, which if you have not watched, I highly recommend going and taking a look because it is such a good little fall time video. But I went through off screen and just decided to do some filler and spice up the pathing a little bit. We have some steps here in front of Nook's cranny. We also have some of the parquet code down, and this is just to help kind of give some variation. On top of those little squares is where we're going to do some different carnival attractions. I also did some filler on these rock jutouts. I had no idea what to do, so I just put more rocks on top of them. And then we have this little forested filler area behind the circus, and this is honestly very similar to a lot of filler that I've done on other spots of the island. Island, which is why I didn't include it. We see it a lot in the pumpkin patch video. You see it in the train track video. I have a bunch of it in my Forbidden Forest. So if you're curious as to how I put it together, you can go and watch those videos and see how I did it. It's a lot of the same stuff: shrubs, flowers, trees, rocks, decayed trees, all that fun stuff. We are now starting out with outfitting the entrance to the circus carnival situation, and I love how this area turned out. I decided to go with more of the monochromatic version of the plaza furniture. So this one right here, that is the black and purple and red and white option. I feel like it looks a lot more vintage, and it also plays heavily into the inspiration that I had for this area. So the main piece of inspiration is a book that I read back in middle school that I am still obsessed with to this day. I love this book, and it is centered around a circus, so it gave me a lot of inspiration for this area. The book is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, which you may or may not have heard of before if you're a reader or not. It's a very, very good book. I highly recommend it, especially if you like things like historical fiction or fantasy or even things like Harry Potter. I'm personally not a Harry Potter girly, and that's mostly just because I wasn't allowed to consume Harry Potter media growing up. I had a very fun upbringing, but The Night Circus is so good, and it features around these magicians, or I guess you could call them wizards if you would like, who are forced into a deadly competition with each other, and the competition is kind of revolving around this circus called the Night Circus that they have to upkeep together using their powers, and whoever gives in first is the loser and ends up dying. It's kind of crazy, not gonna lie. It's like Hunger Games meets, I don't know, like Victorian London meets Harry Potter. It's so good. But it features these two characters, Celia and Marco, who are both forced into a magic competition by their mentors, one of them being Celia's father and the other being just a dude who goes and finds an orphaned boy named Marco and decides to train him because these two mentors have differing viewpoints of how magic should be taught. One of them believes that it is an inherent gift, and the other believes it's something that can be taught using books. And every couple of years they go through and they test their theory by finding random magic users and pitting them together. But this time the magic users are one of their daughters and an orphaned boy, and it's so crazy. It follows their entire life and how they grow up and how they end up eventually meeting each other. But all of that aside, it features around a circus. That is the battlegrounds that they're playing on. But it's not battlegrounds in the sense of like there's fighting or anything. It's actually happening in the real world, and there's real guests that go to the night circus, and they're more so just like the proprietors of this thing. And the aesthetic of the circus in the book is described as black and white. I guess the best way to describe it is actually reading a little iconic excerpt from the book that describes the circus when you first encounter it, and it is that the circus arrives without warning. No announcements precede it. It's simply there, when yesterday it was not. Within the black and white striped canvas tents is an utterly unique experience full of breathtaking amazements. It is called 𝒷𝓊𝓃𝓃𝓎, and it is only open at night. And like, oh, I just get chills. It's so good. I love it so much. And if you ever need a reason to try to convince you to read the book, look up The Night Circus, the clock description. It is breathtaking. Like, as a writer, I foam at the mouth every single time I think about The Night Circus. I love Erin Morgenstern. Get After It Queen. It's beautiful. But that is the main inspiration behind this carnival area. It's why I decided to go through with the black and white and red and purple theme. But as you saw, I went through and I set up a little ticket booth station where you can come in and get your tickets for the different rides. We have a little food stall because of course you have to get your fried Oreos and your funnel cake in areas like this. We also are going through right now and setting up a little popcorn and cotton candy station. And yeah, I had so much fun in this area. Like I said, it was so different, but in like the best way. It was so fun being able to use these items and actually have them all kind of like blend together in a beautiful way, because I feel like sometimes it's hard to get items like these to work together. I'm just going through now and trying to layer some different pumpkin items just to help make it feel a bit more autumnal. Now, it is really difficult working with the plaza items because they are huge, and so to try and fit them all onto the boardwalk was a little bit of a disaster and took a lot of planning and puzzle work, but it works out in the end. There's some areas that your character has to like scooch past to get through, but as long as it looks pretty, then what does it really matter? You know what I mean? But I'm going through now and setting up a little gaming station. I use the bubble machines because I feel like it just makes this area look so much more magical. I tried to include as many like festivale items, like the festivale confetti shooter, we have the bubble machines, and all of these things that I just feel like gives it such a different, more magical feeling. I'm going through right here and setting up a little table where maybe there's a magician doing a magic show or something like that. I think that that's pretty cute. I was kind of struggling a little bit with trying to figure out how exactly I wanted to use these items and like what would actually make sense at a carnival and what would just be really out of place, but I think that this spot is really cute. I love this little area. We're just going through and scooching things around. I finally found a build where I can use the marigold decoration because the purple actually makes sense. But now we're starting with some more of the games. We have a little Ferris wheel going right here, which I felt like was a perfect way to try and decorate the dock area because a lot of times, like in very iconic, circus carnival boardwalks, there's always a Ferris wheel on the actual boardwalk area. And I feel like it kind of helps with the perspective of the Ferris wheel as well, because it's a big item, but when your character stands next to it, it looks tiny. It's like, how would anyone actually fit in there? So I tried to do a little bit of forced perspective and make it look bigger than it actually was. But we're just going through now and lining the water's edge with some fencing before placing down some kids' tents and this super fun customization. I've never been able to use this colorway on the kids' tent before, but I feel like it's perfect for a little circusy carnival tent look. Like maybe there's a fun house in there or something, and I just love how it turned out. I also knew I really wanted to use the spinning wheel. Maybe it's the type of thing where you pay some tickets and you get to spin the wheel, and depending on which one it lands on, you get the toy or something. But yeah, I'm going through and adding some festivale garlands, and honestly, that is pretty much it for this entire circus area. Like, I'm so surprised at how quickly it actually ended up coming together. Alrighty, my friends, so here we are in real time. We have Pudge hanging out with us with his little net trying to catch some bugs. Just kidding, he put it away and he's hanging out by the river. You'll love to see it. But we are here in real time because there is some stuff that I want to walk through with you guys. I know that we just finished our carnival build, but I want to go through and show you guys the pathing that I've done. Technically, I did record the pathing because I know how important it is to you guys to see the pathing. I know it can be really fun to watch the puzzle pieces kind of fall together with all of that, but I gotta be honest, it was really messy. I had no idea what I was doing, and it also was 30 minutes long, sped up and edited down. So I have made the executive decision to instead just do a little walkthrough with you guys. So that way, if you want to mirror these dimensions on your island, you can see everything before all of the decorations and trees go down. Now, for starters, we are hanging out in front of Mayelle's house. I decided that having her kind of own a shop would be a cute idea. Originally, she was going to own a costume shop, but I didn't really like the idea of having a second clothing store on the island when we already have the Able sisters. Instead, I decided that Mayelle is going to run a bookstore, and maybe this bookstore kind of funds her fashion hobby. I thought that would be a cute idea. She also has a very Parisian look, so running a used bookstore, maybe she's really into things like poetry and classical literature, because of course she is a snooty villager. So that's why we're going to be decorating her house out to be a cute little bookstore, and I think that it's going to turn out super cute. I can't wait to start working on this spot. But yeah, I just gave her lots of open areas for us to put some decorations down, and if we head down the road, we can actually see where the carnival is that we worked on. I did go through and just place some hedge fencing as well as some topiaries to really polish out the area. But if we head up and we go over, this is where the road actually ends. And my partner came up with the amazing idea to finish out the road with another tunnel that is very similar to the one we did in the entrance, as well as the one that we did in the railroad speed build. And originally I was not feeling the idea of putting a tunnel here because it's the beach on the other side, and I was like, it doesn't make sense. This tunnel isn't going anywhere. But then I was like, you know what? It's Animal Crossing. Like, yes, I like realism, but at the same time, I didn't know how else I was gonna finish out this road, and his idea was pretty smart, and I think it looked really cute, so that's what I decided to go with in this area. Now, you'll see this big long road up top, this avenue or boulevard or whatever you want to call it, and this area up here is going to be turned into a very cute farmer's market. I went on Pinterest because I was struggling with figuring out what to fill in this area with, and I found so many cute little farmers markets that I just had to try and include one on Pottsfield. I feel like it makes a lot of sense too because this is a small town, and I feel like a lot of like autumn harvest festivals, there's a lot of like fresh produce and things, so we are going to be building this out with storefronts and tables and veggies and all those types of things, so I'm very excited for this. All of the blank spaces that you see are where I plan on putting trees. Now if we head over and up, this is when we get into the neighborhood area. This is also an area of my island where the lag is really bad, so I do apologize. Now I have gone through and outfitted the entire area behind this as well as the filler, and once again that's just because it's a lot of the same stuff that I've been doing in other areas of my island, so you can kind of get a feel for the style that I'm working with when it comes to my filler. Lots of wheat fields and flowers and things. Now, of course, as you can see, we have our campsite. We have a big patch of dirt, and we have Mayel, who is very cutely fishing along the riverside. I love it. Of course, she's a duck villager, so that's why I wanted to put her by the water, because she's a duck, so she's gonna be, you know, wanting to be by the water. And I think that's so cute that she's actually doing that. But we have this little dirt path right here, and that is because this area is going to turn into a fall fair. It's going to be a very small fall fair. This is not a lot of room to work with, but I have some really cute things in mind. I've gotten a lot of inspiration from some of my partners over on Instagram, and I've seen some really cute builds on their islands that I'm going to try and interpret onto Pottsfield. And now if we head on up, you can actually see that we have a dirt path up here that is trailing out into nowhere. So if we head up this dirt path, you can find that we have a little hidden area, and that is Kevin's house, because Kevin is going to be living by the junkyard. And so I'm going to be turning this entire beach space into his little cluttered junkyard dream, and I'm going to be doing the same with his little tiny hidden yard area. And I think it's going to be really cute. I think it's going to be very different for Pottsfield, but I'm very excited. I am honestly obsessed with trashcore, and so I feel like I need to try and just like mimic it as best I can in like an autumn style. So I hope that you guys will like how that ends up turning out. I don't even know how it's going to end up turning out, so we will see. But if we actually head over here, this big green space, I'm planning on just putting lots of trees and foliage. And then over here you can see that we have more dirt pathing, and this actually leads to where the carnival is. Please ignore that balloon. I apologize. As you can see here, I have no slingshot in my inventory like usual. But yes, this dirt path actually leads up and away from the carnival, and this is where the movie hangout spot is going to be. Ignore Kevin thinking. I refuse to have him leave the island, so I'm not even going to entertain it. And then the big thing is I don't know what I'm going to do right here. I was thinking of putting another little pumpkin patch, but I haven't decided just yet. So we will see at the end of the video how this ends up turning out. And yeah, this little area up here, like I said, is going to lead to Kevin's junkyard, and I'm just really excited. So without having this little like showcase and rant go on for too much longer, let's go ahead and start building. So here we are on the beach working on our little movie hangout spot. Originally the movie theater was going to be more of a drive-in movie with, you know, cars and the projector screen and a parking lot, but it just didn't really look right when I tried to mock up any builds for it, because the cars were like so much bigger than the projector screen and the dimensions just looked all wrong. It looked way different in my head, so I decided to turn it into a beachside like movie hangout spot with some kids tents that maybe are for camping, or maybe that's where the movie equipment is being held. Of course we have some pumpkins because this is set close to Halloween, the island is. And yeah, we're just going through and outfitting the actual picnic blanket with some Zen cushions and all of our favorite snacks like some veggie cupcakes and a pumpkin pie. I actually don't know if I would like veggie cupcakes, they don't sound very good. But then again, I know that people do like zucchini bread and it almost tastes like banana bread, at least so I've been told. But I've never tried zucchini bread because, I don't know, something about that just does not sit right with me. Now, do keep in mind that if you do tour this island whenever I am finished with it, that this spot is very hard to navigate. You can sit on that first cushion, but you can't actually like walk through the area. You kind of have to go in the grassy bit to get around this spot, so do keep that in mind. This is one of those, you know, style over substance type of builds. But now we're actually moving on to this main plaza area. I'm starting out by kind of framing this road out with a castle gate as well as some decorative pillars, and I think it looks so good. As you can see in the background, Mayel is stomping around. Vesta and her got into a little fight. I did not figure out what the fight was about, but it's so funny seeing it sped up because they're just stomping all over the place. But I'm going through right now and decorating Mayel's bookstore. This area I'm just filling up with a lot of books. I like the idea of putting a little table out here because I know that some used bookstores in my town have little tables where they have their like more heavily discounted books out for show for people to like kind of sift through before they come in the store. So I added that. I added a storefront, of course, to extend out her home. And then over here, I'm just adding a bookcase. I don't think it's necessarily really conducive for being next to the river. I don't think it makes much sense to have a bunch of books in a bookcase outside of your house, but that's too bad. That's what we're doing in this area. I think it turned out so cute. I love that little sign. It almost feels like dark academia to me, and that's a island design theme that I really want to do in the future. I'm going through now and just finishing up the little side jut out of her house with a covered counter as well as a wooden bookcase. I love how close the wooden bookcase sits to items in the game, so it's a great way to finish off the end of a faux building. And that is pretty much it for Mayel's cute little bookstore. Now, I did do her interior. That was not included because I am still trying to figure out how I want to do interiors. I can't figure out the best way to record them, so I'm going to put a pin in that for now. We are moving on to the fall fair. Now, this fall fair area was heavily inspired by a lovely partner that I have over on Instagram, Arden Crossing, who is just the absolute sweetest person in the world. Shout out to Arden. I love you so much, bestie. Your builds are always so gorgeous. Now, Arden also does a lot of really cute custom design codes. The flag for Pottsfield was actually a design code made by Arden, as well as a couple of other ones that we have on the island and some sweaters that I've worn in the past. And Arden created the cutest little pie eating contest on her fall island, so I feel like I needed to include something similar. I just love the idea so much. So I went through and I have a pie eating contest as well as just a pie baking contest. Now, Arden created these super cute little ribbons, and I just think it looks adorable to have a little area where maybe some villagers in town baked some pies, and the judges, maybe Tom Nook is the judge. I wouldn't be surprised knowing him, but maybe he went through and had to judge the pies based off of taste and look and just the overall like festiveness of them, who knows. I am currently watching the new season of the Great British Bake Off with my partner, so I'm feeling very much inspired to have some pie contests. We actually just watched the Pastry Week episode, so you know we had to include some pies over on Pottsfield. But of course, all credit to Arden for giving me this idea to begin with. It was so cute, and I highly recommend going and checking out her island. But now that the fall festival is all done and taken care of, we are moving on to the farmers market. Now, this is something that was heavily inspired by something I found on Pinterest as well. I will post the picture right here on the screen, as well as linking any socials that I can find for the creator down below. But I wanted to go through and use these storefronts to look like fake little buildings or actual stores. And I'm just going through and putting like a little just farmers market situation. We have some stalls with some merchandise tables. One of them is selling maybe like some homemade soup or something. We have one that is selling apples and fruits. This one right here is supposed to be a little like pumpkin stand. So I have the orange marmalade object, but I like the idea of maybe it being like a pumpkin spread or pumpkin puree. So I added that. Now we're just doing a little veggie stall as well, very similar to the actual like pumpkin themed one. And I'm going through and just trying to fill in this area to make it look pretty municipal. I tried to bring in the feeling of resident services in this side of the island as best I could, because I felt like in the last couple of builds we were getting away from that central theme. Now of course I like the idea of different parts of the island being in a kind of different theme, because of course not every part of a city is going to look the same, but I am happy that we're kind of back in that vintage dark academia autumn type of building style. But here I am just creating yet another fake building. I've seen people use the wedding pipe organ as a backdrop for a building, so I decided to do something similar. I just outfitted it with a stonework kitchen, some door simple panels, and a stall to kind of make it look like maybe it's a restaurant or just a little like general store or something like that. I have a lot of canned goods outside of it because I like the idea of maybe this is like a cannery or something. And so I'm just going through and trying to outfit the area with some different objects to make it look like it's more built in. I feel like once the trees get added, it feels a lot more completed. And I'm creating a little dining area behind it with some soup because of course it is autumn, which is soup season. I actually didn't like soup growing up. It always freaked me out. Hot beverages in general are not my favorite. Like I will not drink hot coffee, I won't drink hot tea, I won't drink tea in general because I don't like tea, but I cannot bring myself to drink hot liquids. I don't like hot cocoa, which sucks because Christmas is coming up and I'm just not a hot cocoa girly. So yeah, the idea of soup growing up for me was always really weird, but I don't know, I've come around. Now that I have my own kitchen and I can make my own soup, it just is way more enjoyable. Like, I feel like soup is better eaten when you're the one making it, so I'm definitely a soup girly nowadays. But we have pretty much finished out the entire farmers market area. I am replacing this design path with a little bike stand spot, and I think this area turned out so cute. I love using these steel fence as a little bike stop, and the bike item is a little hard to work with, but I go through and layer the mountain bike with the cruiser bike just to try and give some color variation and some shape variation. And that is pretty much it for the little farmers market area. We're just going through now and placing down a couple of trees. The main green patch off to the side I don't include because there are literally like 50 trees in that area. But this spot right here, I tried to show the tree-lined boulevard, which I think looks so beautiful. It's so pretty. And once we go through and add these trees next to the storefronts, I feel like it also makes this area look a bit more complete. The storefronts look a little bit silly backed up against each other because there is like no substance to the actual like interior of the building, but that's just my like realism pet peeve coming out. But yeah, we're going through and layering all these different types of trees, and that is pretty much it for this little main boulevard area. Now, of course, I did a lot of tree filler off screen, as you can see. I also figured out what I wanted to do with that beach above the movie hangout spot. I know I'd mentioned possibly turning it into a pumpkin patch, but I decided to turn it into something else, and that will be something that you will not see until the tour of Pottsfield, because there are a couple of areas, mostly just beach areas, that I didn't actually show on screen, and I wanted to kind of keep them as a bit of a surprise so that you guys could have something new to look at when we go to do the tour. Of course, I'm hoping that there will be a lot of new faces around when the tour gets posted, but for all of you who have been here since the beginning, I wanted to give you a little treat to see something that you haven't seen before. But of course, we are working on Kevin's little junkyard area right now. This was not the build that I envisioned myself finishing Pottsfield with. I originally wanted the Carnival to be the last build that we featured on the island, but that's just not really how it ended up working out. I was really inspired by the Carnival, and I don't know, this one just ended up being the last one that we put together, and it's not very autumnal, but it feels very vintage to me because we use a lot of the vintage items in this area. I feel like it kind of plays into the age of the city of Pottsfield itself. I will tell you guys more about the story of Pottsfield whenever we actually go through and do a tour, because I have made a little tiny excerpt as to like what the city is and introducing Pottsfield and all of its residents. But I don't know, it just, for some reason, I just kept seeing myself putting a junkyard somewhere on the island, and it made sense because Pottsfield is a city, and to have these older vintage items like the retro transportation stuff and the transit seats and everything like that and the oil drums, it just feels very old and kind of plays into this idea that Pottsfield has been around for a long time. Now, of course, I don't know if it's necessarily fair to have Kevin be the one living in the junkyard. I feel like I'm giving Kevin a bit of a bad rap, but I don't know, just with the schoolboy jacket that he's wearing, he just seems like a little bit of a scoundrel. So maybe it's not so much that he lives here, but this is more so like a hangout spot for him and his friends, because I envision that Kevin is a bit more of like a teenager than like a full-grown adult villager. So maybe he has a house somewhere else in town that he actually lives in. Now, originally for Kevin, I was going to have Hazel live on the island and be his best friend. Sadly, of course, I ran out of slots for villagers, so Hazel does not live on the island, but hopefully I can put her on a different island in the future, and instead, regardless, Hazel is going to be his best friend in my mind and in my lore. She just doesn't live on the island. Like, maybe she spends the summers here in Pottsfield, but the autumn she has to go back to a different city or something, who knows. But yeah, I'm just going through and cluttering up his house as much as possible. When it came to me choosing the items that I was going to use in this area, of course, anything rusted, old, and brown I wanted to use. But at the same time, I kind of just grabbed whatever was left in my storage. I had so much excess of items in my storage when I was done. I went through and I just saw this like conglomeration of items that I had grabbed off of treasure islands that I was never using. So I was like, okay, this is going to be a fun little challenge. Let's see if we can put together a junkyard using only items that I have in my storage. So that's why this area looks the way that it does. It's kind of mismatched, which of course plays into the theme. Like, it makes sense for it to be mismatched. It's a junkyard. Nothing is supposed to match. But that's kind of the like ethos behind this area. I knew for sure I really wanted to use this retro transportation seat bench thing. It looks like it came out of like an old subway or like an old New York like bus or something. I don't know. New York doesn't really have buses. I think they only have the subway. I've never been to New York, so I don't know. But yeah, I just went through and decided to give a little area toward the back that almost looks like a little like faux kitchen. We have some bottles, we have a microwave, the sloppy table. Here I'm using the cardboard table, which is such a fun item. I love the cardboard furniture, especially for more of a trash core themed area. So I'm just going through and, like I said, cluttering up this space with any excess items that I have. We have a sloppy sink, which kind of like closes out this little faux kitchen area that we put outside. Now, I don't think that Kevin is actually going to be using that kitchen because I did give him a kitchen inside of his house, but maybe some people have renovated their homes on the island, so some furniture and cabinetry has ended up in the dump. Now, that is a fun thing to bring up, the dump, because in old Animal Crossing games, especially in the GameCube one, there was a dump that was actually on your town, and instead of having the recycling bin that we have in New Horizons, you could go to the dump and you would be able to find different items that villagers would leave in the dump, and it was just such a cool little spot. I loved it so much. I would love to go through and maybe do a challenge island where I try to recreate the GameCube like town setup where we have like the dump and the train station. Who knows? I don't know if I'd even be able to pull that off, but it just felt very nostalgic to work on this build because it just reminded me of the dump from the old games, which like doesn't sound like a very nostalgic spot, but honestly, there is a nostalgic appeal to the older games that I do miss. Don't get me wrong, New Horizons is undoubtedly the best in the entire Animal Crossing franchise. I have to say, New Leaf was really good. Don't get me wrong, I love New Leaf. However, you have to take into account just how much customization we have in Animal Crossing New Horizons. I feel like a lot of people forget about that fact and instead just look at it as, oh, Nintendo gave us an unfinished game, which, don't get me wrong, Nintendo kind of did. But at the same time, they added so much to the franchise that any new game that we get, hopefully in the next year, fingers crossed, will be just so good. Back to the speed build, I have just outfitted this entire back area with a little hangout spot with some lawn chairs. I'm also working on this little like music area, like maybe there's like a little grunge garage band that Kevin has with his friends, maybe him, Pudge, and Hazel run a little band together. I think that's so cute. But yeah, I went through and just once again cluttered it up with as many little trashy items as I could find. And that is pretty much it for this entire speed build. So let's go look at the beauty shots. Alrighty, my friends, that is everything for the speed build and the beauty shots. I do hope that you enjoyed as always, and would love to hear your final thoughts on how it all turned out in the comments down below. I still can't believe that we're actually done with this island, and now I have to start wrapping things up here on Pottsfield. But nonetheless, I am so excited to walk through the island with you guys when we do our tour very soon. I do just want to take a quick moment to mention that I am currently hosting a giveaway over on my Instagram account, as I have officially reached 500 followers over there, which thank you guys so much. The giveaway is a partnership with an amazing Animal Crossing artist, 𝒷𝓊𝓃𝓃𝓎 over on Instagram, and the winner will receive a free profile picture that is done by her. If that's something that you're interested in, do be sure to go and check it out. My Instagram account is under the handle of @𝒷𝓊𝓃𝓃𝓎, like it is over here on YouTube. I also want to mention that we are very close to reaching a milestone here on the channel as well. We are so close to 1,500 subscribers, and I have some big news for the channel once we reach that goal. So if you're not yet subscribed, do consider subscribing to the channel, as well as hitting the notification bell to get notified of all of my future cozy uploads. With all of that out of the way, thank you all so much for joining me on Pottsfield's journey, and do stay tuned for the tour, which will be up on the channel very soon, and I will see you again in the next video.